All right, betters, I have a fascinating video for y'all today. Jesse Michaels, who is one of the top UFO podcasters out there with a great channel, if you haven't checked it out, recently just had Lieutenant Colonel John Blitch on his show. I've covered him before. He was part of the News Nation Skywatcher rollout, right? Part of UFO whistleblower Jake Barber and his team, and John Blitch was featured in that News Nation exclusive.
One of his most fervent supporters is Colonel John Blitch, a Renaissance warrior who holds a doctorate in psychology, was a Delta Force sniper, and is one of the few men to hold doomsday in his hands, commanding a nuclear weapons battalion.
So you believe Jake Barber is telling the truth?
Absolutely.
There has been a cover-up lasting 80 years.
Absolutely.
We've recovered craft.
Absolutely.
So let's roll back.
Later on, they released an interview about him having an experience with a praying mantis, right? An abduction story. Now, in this video, we're going to cover quite a few things because I found this, interview with Jesse Michaels and John Blitch to be quite illuminating, to be honest with you. And John goes into way more detail than he has before. So I'm going to put a link in the description. Please go check out this full interview because there's a lot more in there that I'm covering in this video. But three things in particular that we're going to cover. One is the idea of the threat narrative, right? That aliens are a threat. Okay, that's point one. Point two, we're going to cover the idea that aliens genetically engineered humans, okay? And three, we're going to listen to part of John's story, right? Some of his abduction experience. Now, I am going to warn you, some of it is quite terrifying, to be honest with you, when you hear it. So just a trigger warning, right, for anyone that has had their own experiences and may not be ready for this. So, look, let's start with part of John's thoughts on if aliens are a threat.
I really want to push back against the threat narrative and the fear that it generates.
Yeah, this stuff's it's not a threat. I mean, unless there's some specific thing that we're doing now that threatens them, that is wholesale, orders of magnitude worse than like the creation of nukes. I don't see how it is a threat.
I have a hard time with this argument, to be honest with you, that aliens aren't a threat. And I'll make more points as we go along in this video. But how are they not a threat? If this is an unknown entity or entities and we're unsure of who they are, their origin, their motivations, their intentions, their capabilities, isn't by default they're a threat, right? And they're a threat until we can guarantee they're not a threat, right? Why would we not be defensive? This is the only planet we have. We're on Earth. That's it. We don't have another planet, right? So by default, we should be treating this as a threat till it's not. That doesn't mean we're actively going out of our way to provoke them, but the idea that they're not considered a threat is unusual to me. And again, I'll make more points as we go along. And another thing that Jesse brings up that I do find interesting, the whole nuke situation, right? It's been theorized that when we started setting off nukes, that was somehow, interfering with these beings' either craft or their world. Like it's even theorized that like those nukes going off were like somehow, ripple effect into their dimension or other reality, and it was bleeding over into ours. And I would say that doesn't make any sense. Did you know the sun, how powerful the sun is? You know how many nukes go off on the sun every day, right? I mean, there are explosions, and let's just forget explosions, just mass amounts of energy that are distributed in an instant all across the universe all the time, right? Suns exploding. I mean, there's just all kinds of craziness going out in the universe, and that's not interfering with their reality, but our little nukes on our planet are. I mean, that just makes no sense if you ask me, right? Because in relation to the power that exists within the universe, the power of an atomic bomb on Earth is nothing, it's nothing in comparison to what's out there. So I don't see how that would be a threat if they're so advanced, right? And if they are in this other world, that's what bleeds in, then it must be bleeding into their environment all over the universe, because this is happening all over, right? So I don't know. Explain the sun to me, how the power of the sun and what they say, how many nukes go off on the sun every day, and that's not, a threat. I mean, check this out, what I Googled, right? The sun produces the equivalent energy of billions of nuclear bombs every second, making it impossible to compare directly to a single nuke count. But you know what I mean? It's like, look at this. Even the most powerful nuclear weapon would be insignificant compared to the sun's immense energy output, similar to throwing a grain of sand into a bonfire. So how is our little nukes going off on our planet interfering? Right? Again, it doesn't make sense to me, because the sun would be in their, world or whatever, right? The sun, again, I just don't get this. And the idea that aliens aren't a threat, again, we're going to dive deeper into this in this video, because even Lieutenant Colonel John Blitch, in my opinion, contradicts the idea that it's not a threat. He's pushing back against it, but everything he talks about outlines a threat.
My underlying thesis for what I present in the alien abduction amnesty knot is that the abduction phenomenon is at the center of all of this. And so I want to bow down yet again to all of my heroic brothers and sisters in the intelligence community, and thank them for their pessimistic point of view. They are inherently pessimistic, and they have to be. Their whole career is based on briefing a commander with the worst possible case. So I want to counterbalance that and present a statistically based argument that 99% of the violent crime that is committed on this planet, not just the United States, globally, is committed by 1% of the population. So if you extrapolate from there, which is the only thing we can do unless somebody starts divulging secrets and telling us otherwise, 99% of them are friendly, and there's only 1% that might be doing bad stuff to us.
Sure.
Now, the middle ground is the scientists, right? The veterinarians who come in and pluck us out of our bed, play with us, take me off my mountain bike, take me out of my bed after using the hurricane over my house as a cover to land, whatever they do.
Yeah.
But there's compassion there, because they remove our memories so that we can get on with our lives.
Now, this guy has credentials that are honestly quite amazing, and he's served our country, and I want to thank him for his service. Now, respectfully, I want to push back a little bit, right? He has no idea, and no one does, how many alien species there are, how many are coming to Earth, again, what their intentions are. So to extrapolate, statistically speaking, from the human population and say that 99% of aliens are good, but just 1% are bad. Well, look at what the 1% on Earth has done. Should we start naming leaders in the past who were not good, right? And look at what humanity was doing to each other, before the 20th century. Go back even more centuries, right? Like, that's not good. 1% can cause a lot of problems. Let's just say that's true about aliens. That 1%, if they're so advanced, it could be one alien that could destroy the planet. I mean, that just makes no sense. And again, how would he know that? How would he know that 99% of aliens are fine? What aliens? What species? What beings? You know every existing being in the universe and who's come to Earth over the course of time. Again, where are they getting these numbers and these stats from? I'd be so curious to ask John about this and push back on that a little bit more. Respectfully, of course. I'm just curious. Maybe he's got an answer, and I'm like, oh, okay. I just don't know how that's possible to know, right? So again, respectfully, I just push back on that narrative, especially if they're abducting people. What part of that is not a threat, right? They have compassion for us because they can erase our memories. That is not compassion. I think, and again, I mean this respectfully, I think, in my opinion, John needs to look up the definition of compassion, because that's not compassion at all. So let's say a husband beats his wife and then afterwards has the ability to erase her memory. Is he compassionate? Just if the same beings that caused the trauma remove the memory of the trauma, does not make them compassionate. You know what that makes them? A criminal, because they're covering up their crime, right? So again, tell me in the comments what you think. Maybe I'm wrong here. Maybe I'm seeing it differently. I don't know. Am I missing something here? So let's get to John talking a little bit more about his own personal experiences, because when you hear this, I just don't know where he's not getting that these aliens are a threat or could be a threat, right? Again, I don't know how we don't consider them a threat just by default.
This big bug came like through the screen door on our deck. This is a deck that's 3 stories up above the backyard, and there's no stairs. So you can only get to it through the screen door off of the master bedroom. And just walks right up through that, and he's standing over me, and he's conveying to me telepathically.
What does the bug look like?
Big grasshopper, big praying mantis thing, big eyes, and kind of a triangle head.
Wow.
And so, but I wasn't afraid.
Hmm.
It was
Similar to like Close Encounters of the Third Kind mantis?
I don't remember any mantis, and
I thought there was maybe there's a Mandela effect or something, but anyway, you keep going.
maybe so.
Yeah.
All I remember is the little gray guys, and maybe a tall, skinny gray
Yeah,
guy.
I thought
right?
there was a tall
Big eyes, yeah,
mantis
yeah.
in the back. Yeah.
I don't remember any mantis in that, but he was chastising me,
Mm-hmm.
and he was sort of lecturing me in sort of a condescending, instructional way, commanding me to stop wiggling around.
Mm.
And he's telling me, look, this body that you've got, it's nothing but a soul container, and we can't do anything to hurt that or steal it or damage it. We can do a lot of damage to your body if we want to. We don't want to. We're trying to help you.
Mm.
So quit squirming around,
Mm-hmm.
and we're going to do some tune-ups here. We're going to work on it a little bit.
What do you think the tune-ups were? How were they trying to help you?
I don't know. He just, and I never got that level of detail.
Mm-hmm.
All I got was, don't be afraid. There's nothing to be afraid of. We're trying to help you. And as an example of how bad it can get, he opens his little triangle face, opens up, and these jaws open up, and he starts tugging chunks of flesh off of me, from my cheeks, my shoulders, and he's flinging it, and there's blood spatter and everything, and it should have been absolutely terrifying.
Were you bleeding? And
I felt the tug on my face.
but
and I
he's ripping
saw-
skin off your
Yeah,
face.
yeah, I felt the tug,
What?
and there's blood splashing, and the whole time he's like, "See, this is what we could do to you easily, but we're not doing that."
Afterwards, were you bloody due to that?
Yeah, never any indication of anything. This is like mental imagery that I'm receiving.
Okay. So
And
this
then-
doesn't feel like a physical.
No, it did feel like it.
Yeah.
It felt like he wanted me to feel.
He wanted to
the
simulate
violence.
that you could. Okay.
Right. He wanted me to know that they could
Yeah.
rip me to shreds if they wanted to, but they couldn't get to my soul.
Mm.
And even if I died in that process, I'm going to come back. There's a soul that's going to come back, and who knows? I might come back as one of them
Mm.
and come at them. So that was all that in a very intense moment. That lesson that just quit squirming around and let us get this freaking done, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And then boom, I was out.
So again, I'm not here to diminish John's personal traumatic experience here at all. He went on a public platform and talked about it, and I'm just asking questions, right? Like we do here. So, but again, I have to say, how is this not a threat, right? He's saying they're not a threat. They're here to help us, right? But then he describes a story of a praying mantis ripping off parts of his face. Now, again, but it wasn't real. It was just a praying mantis demonstrating their capabilities to annihilate us. That's called intimidation, right? How is this not a threat? But they're here to help us and tune us up. In what way? What are we talking about? So I would definitely love to talk to John and get more information on this, because I just don't see how this is not a threat. Again, ripping the face off, demonstrating what they could do to us. And it almost sounds a little bit like Stockholm Syndrome, right? Where someone who is kidnapped then later protects the kidnapper, becomes close to them and will defend them, right? It's a very odd way to tell this, in my opinion. I don't know how you tell a story like that and say, but they're not here to hurt us, y'all. They just will show you that they can rip your face off. You'll experience it, but you know, it's just letting us know they could annihilate us, but they're not. Thank God. That's not compassion at all. But one thing that was interesting that he said at the end, which was just fascinating to think about, I had never thought about this, reincarnation. He was saying, what if they couldn't take his soul, so what if he came back as an alien to then do this too? That is interesting. I don't know if I've ever thought about that. Now let's get to the last part that I was going to bring up in this video. And it's the idea that humans are genetically engineered by these aliens.
Do you think that humans are an experiment? Some sort of genetic experiment?
My belief is that absolutely. Absolutely. From what occurred with me.
Yeah.
And again, a lot of the experiencer literature is strongly suggestive of that.
Well, then, I mean, again, there's a lot of potential contradictions here. If we're genetically engineered by aliens, then what about the souls? They control souls. So how could we come back as an alien to genetically engineer ourselves? So anyway, I don't know. But I mean, it's definitely a fascinating concept, right? That we're here because of these beings. But again, just to wrap this all up, right? There is no way to know who we're dealing with and what we're dealing with, right? Because John had one experience with a praying mantis, but does he know that's the only other alien species in the entire universe and what their intentions are? Again, I just so confused by this. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. I'll put a link in the description to the full interview. There's a lot more to get in there, and he details more of his other experiences. So we'll see you guys in the next one, vetters. Remember, every day is a gift, y'all. Peace.